we're building the bridge as we walk on it. And that's kind of daunting because we're walking into the unknown. We don't know what's next, and we're trying to build these cultures that are ready for whatever's next, not knowing what's ahead of us. And that is a daunting place to be. But if we don't do it, it happens to us without our lead. And all of the practices and processes that HR can use to change organizational culture can be so pivotal in bringing you the culture that you need for the future. It's true that 2020 has already created a new world of work and probably has dramatically accelerated more than anyone could have envisaged. But now is the decision point of where we go. And I don't believe that we're going to end up back where we were, where everybody just, the vaccines come out and we all just get back into our offices and pick up the old ways again. I don't think that's going to be a reality. But I'm not sure about full remote working either, because, we like to be part of communities. We like to connect with other people. But either way, whatever your belief is about what the future world of work will look like, what is sure is that we're going to be working in dispersed teams of some nature. So one of the things to think about, and I'm drawing from this analogy of buildings, there was all these studies done of buildings that were built in earthquake territories. And they had to think about, well, how is the building going to withstand the earthquakes and ensure that it stays up and stays resilient and we keep our people safe. And what was really interesting is the building is constructed on top of flexible pads that isolate the foundation from the ground. So when the earthquake hits, only the base moves and the structure remains steady. And I think we can take a lesson out of that from HR and think about what is the foundation that will ensure resilience, so that no matter what hits us next, no matter what this decade brings, we have a solid foundation that we can build off. And then we can add practices and processes and flexible and experiment and try things. So we can have all that flexibility on top that helps us become the best that we can be in this organization. What we've done in Tandem is we've kind of looked at, well, if you take all of, the key drivers of employee experience, what still matters to employees and what can we still do in our cultures that will make the biggest difference and help us build up that resilience, build up that foundation. So we look at areas like growth and development, and people still want to grow and develop. In fact, all of the stats show that we're hungrier for it now than we ever were. Next is voice, and I think this is becoming increasingly important because people need to be heard. Now that you're sitting behind a Teams call, this kind of working doesn't suit everybody. Some team meetings, it's harder to draw out some characters and some personalities now that maybe would have had more of a shot in an office environment. And community is so key, because if we're just slotting in and out and we're developing this almost freelancer mindset, then why do I work for you instead of somebody else? And leadership, for sure. I mean, this never goes away, right? Because those manager relationships now are more pivotal than ever. If I don't hear from my manager now, it's more worrying. And of course, we need that recognition because we're not getting it through our natural smiles and nods and, other forms of validation. So we need to put more structure around recognition and appreciation. And more than ever, people need purpose. That sense of, I want to make a difference. I want to see my contribution. This has to be bigger than me. I can't be just sitting here doing team calls from one end of the day to the next. That's exhausting if it doesn't feel like I'm working toward a bigger purpose and I see the impact of my work. Well, if we're starting to take steps toward it, and there's a couple of things that we could do which help us move toward the cultures that will start to help us live in agile worlds. One is, we have to think about how we disseminate our practices, our processes. And you can look right across all of the practices in HR. But I think it was Mark Mortensen who said that performance management is like the anchor of culture, because it is the most visible, it's the most symbolic. And performance management is no longer about how we do our review once a year. It's much broader than that. It's how do we manage our people end to end. The other big shift I see is performance management to performance ownership. Maybe it was always a bit of a a stretch that we were managing anyone's performance, right? Because how do you manage somebody's performance? People drive their performance, and you can give a response on it, but did we ever really manage it? But there's this new kind of concept where you can consider everybody owning their performance and driving it forward together. And I think that takes a different mindset. It takes empowering the employees, and it takes structures and foundations to do it. The other thing that I think is really relevant is reactive to predictive analytics. We're so dependent on our employee surveys, and then we get excited when our employee surveys gives us some level of prediction. But the prediction is usually, you've got a problem over here and they're going to have a retention problem. At that point, it's all too late. And indeed, the transformation of HR to an agile world has got to involve technology. We have got to move to a more digital HR place. So finally, culture change, it's a tough one, right? Because everybody talks about it and wants it, and everybody wants to move their cultures to be more agile. We want to live in this agile world, and we want to be resilient enough and have all the right foundations so that we can deal with whatever society throws at us next. But it's not for the faint-hearted. And this is our moment, I think, in HR, to lead from the front and to be really brave and to start crafting the experience that we believe is right. You won't know everything, but starting and taking the step and taking the lead is the key first step to it.